Good evening. We've come to know, and of course Indian media is running it all over, that Pakistan plans to use Kulbhushan Jadhav's case to malign India in front of the international communities. But this comes even as a big embarrassment for Pakistan on its own soil. The Supreme Court Bar Association in Pakistan has now said and questioned the legitimacy of military courts in that country, putting a question mark on the legitimacy of the sentencing of Kulbhushan Jadhav. Take a look at the story. We'll come right back.
Cornered, exposed and globally isolated, Islamabad has been trying all possible tricks in the book to keep its secret safe.
From the outset, transparency was ensured in the proceedings in the trial of Commander Kulbhushan Jadhav. A law-qualified officer was provided to defend him throughout the court proceedings. All statements of the witnesses were recorded under oath in the presence of the accused in the court. Commander Kulbhushan was allowed to ask questions from the witnesses.
Now as New Delhi mounts diplomatic offensive, calling off security talks,
हम लोग सारे एफर्ट करेंगे, पूरा प्रयास करेंगे कि कुलभूषण जाधव के साथ जस्टिस हो और वो शूट आउट.
They are preparing an additional dossier for against Kulbhushan Jadhav, and it's being distributed to various envoys of other countries stationed in Islamabad, and a copy of it will be sent to United Nations.
A desperate Pakistan is running for cover. While Islamabad is yet to respond to the 3 requests made by India, it is now busy drafting another lie. Pakistan's nefarious plot with an intention to malign India, timed just 2 days ahead of US NSA's maiden visit to South Asia. While Islamabad attempts to bridge its equation with the Trump administration and regain ground, Nawaz Sharif and his country stand completely isolated, with ally Iran also slamming Pakistan for its vilification campaign.
Various superpowers of the world, the Indian government is in talks with. For example, the former ambassador of Germany has already snubbed Pakistan. Various superpowers of the world, the Indian government is in talks with. For example, the former ambassador of Germany has already snubbed Pakistan. Then we have US, UK, France and few other top countries have also snubbed Pakistan as far as the terror activities are concerned. So Indian government is planning to corner Pakistan at the international forum again to isolate Pakistan.
And if that wasn't enough, Bajwa is facing a revolt from within, with the citizens challenging the Pakistani army, filing a petition against the military courts and demanding the Supreme Court to quash the army law. Challenged by their own, dumped by their ally, Pakistan is struggling to sell its pack of lies. As the pressure mounts, till when can Islamabad continue with its sham? Bureau Report, NewsX.
Tonight on The Nation at 9, big questions on your screens right now. How can India make sure the Pakistani plot to malign India on the international level is foiled? What exactly is the government doing about that? Big question number 2, is Pakistan really as isolated as India would like to see or believe on the international stage? More on that in just a bit. Question number 3, big question tonight on The Nation at 9 on your screens right now. Does the Pakistani strategy in the Kulbhushan Jadhav case reek of desperation? That's question number 3. And our last big question tonight on The Nation at 9, debate number 1, is this on your screens right now. Will India's allies, countries like Germany, countries like the US, now turn the screws on Pakistan? Those are the big questions tonight. We'll be making sure all of those are hit during our show tonight. Joining us tonight is Sudhanshu Mittal, leader of the BJP, joins us on the panel. Bharat Karnad, strategic affairs expert, also joins us from Delhi. Vivek Karju, former secretary of the MEA, joins us from Delhi. Commodore retired GJ Singh, the defense analyst, joins us from Bangalore. And Arsalan Bhatti, a senior journalist from Pakistan, will be joining us as well. Thank you all for being with us. Let me start, if I could, with Mr. Mittal. Sudhanshu Mittal, the fact that even today, the Pakistani Supreme Court Bar Association has questioned the legitimacy of military courts in Pakistan, saying that perhaps they're not even constitutional. That's an embarrassment for Pakistan. That's a setback in the Jadhav case for Pakistan as well. Although that happened in Pakistan, we understand and have credible information that Pakistan is going to try and malign India as far as the Jadhav case is concerned, trying to make the case that India is up to no good in Pakistan's backyard. Do you believe the government is doing enough to make sure that particular plot is foiled on the international stage?
I can tell you with certainty that no stone will be left unturned by the government of India. You've seen the resolve of this government, and on this issue certainly the government will explore all possible options, including options which are not to be ever spelled out on a public platform. Pakistan cannot get away with this, for sure. The stand of the Supreme Court Bar Association of Pakistan has only vindicated India's position that Pakistan is trying to perpetrate a farce. The entire trial and the entire story, the entire falsehood about Mr. Jadhav's case stands completely demolished when the Bar Association of Supreme Court of Pakistan itself questions the constitutionality of the action which has been taken by Pakistan. So as far as Pakistan and its rogue intent is concerned, I think it's not just a matter of India, it's worldwide it is understood. You see, a nation which has been Osama bin Laden, which has been lying about Osama bin Laden with impunity, and got thoroughly exposed when the Americans attacked and took him, killed him. So Pakistan.
Mr. Mittal, do you really believe that Pakistan is really as isolated as India would like to believe, given the fact that H.R. McMaster, NSA of the US, is landing up in Islamabad soon, the fact that China keeps backing Pakistan as far as any issue is concerned, be it terrorism or otherwise? Do you think that we perhaps overstate the importance of the isolation of Pakistan on the international stage?
Of Pakistan on the international stage, we will mount pressures from all kind of quarters, but for sure, though Pakistan has been getting unflinching support from China, the kind of support it had earlier commanded vis-a-vis India is no more there, because when the world has faced the perils of terrorism, everybody realizes that there are no good terrorists and no bad terrorists, and Pakistan itself on this list is a suspect nation as far as the world is concerned. So I have no doubts that Pakistan has lost its clout in the international community on this issue for sure.
Okay, I want to go. Because I want to go across to Bharat Karnad as well for a second. And before I go to Bharat Karnad, we'll go to Vivek Kaju for a bit. Vivek Kaju, there's a new dossier that's been sent to the UN by Pakistan on the Jadhav issue. Now, this dossier contains fresh, quote-unquote, evidence. It also is based on the early video confessional statement of Mr. Jadhav given in front of the court for his involvement in espionage and sabotage activities in Karachi and Balochistan. Now, this dossier has not only been sent to the UN, but also to many other countries. It's gone to every other country except for India. So this is a clear ploy.
But for India.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Except for India, everywhere it's been sent. Now, it's a very clear ploy to try and malign India as far as Mr. Jadhav is concerned and other cases are concerned. Do you think this newfound so-called evidence, so-called case against Mr. Jadhav is going to make sure that Pakistan actually gets what it wants? That's clearly some sort of a tension on the region, some sort of a tension over the tension between the two countries, and try and spin out yet another yarn about India's activities.
Look, the Pakistani attempt in this matter right through from the beginning has been to create some kind of equivalence with India. India has been saying, and rightly, that Pakistan sponsors terrorism in India. The international community now accepts that charge. Pakistan wishes to promote the idea that India is doing the same kind of activities in Balochistan and Karachi and elsewhere. Now, if the dossier which they've put together is anything like the statement which Sartaj Aziz issued yesterday, then the world and the international community will simply dismiss it. Because if one goes again on the charges that were leveled against Mr. Jadhav, who is Mr. Jadhav now, he's a retired officer. Pakistan, of course, claims he's a serving officer. So if you go through those charges, they are nothing but simple statements which mean very little without any backing evidence. More than that, if you see the timeline, which they say from the time he was arrested to the time of his confessional statement, etc., it is full of contradictions and loopholes. For instance, Athar, and this is an important fact, in January, Sartaj, in January of this year, 2017, according to Sartaj Aziz, India was approached for assistance to get specific evidence and materials. Now, by that time, 3 sessions of the trial had already been completed. India did not respond. Now, obviously, they did not have sufficient evidence to try Jadhav, and yet, in the absence of that evidence from India, they still proceeded to not only complete the trial, but convict him. My own assessment is that 2 points. One, that we can't rely on the Pakistani courts. The Supreme Court of Pakistan has already upheld the military court system. That was a constitutional amendment.
Even though
so
some
I
people are
don't think
questioning
that
the legitimacy of the
another
themselves.
review petition will yield
Yes,
any. But
yes, Vivek Arju, even though there is some embarrassment with the Pakistani military
yes,
court today,
but the court itself has upheld that.
yes, it has. Clearly, it has. Bharat
No, I
Karnal-
don't. Look.
Yes.
The second point I wish to make.
No, I want to go to Bharat Karnad very quickly on the dossier number 1. Bharat Karnad, this dossier that we are hearing of now has gone to the UN, has gone to every other major country on the world stage except for India. And this is clearly the ploy. And I asked Vivek Arju the same thing. Do you first of all believe that Pakistan really is as isolated as India would like to believe, or the government in India would like to believe, as far as relations with India or relation with terrorism is concerned? And 2, Bharat Karnad, how do you see this dossier gambit panning out for Pakistan? They clearly believe they have something here to embarrass India with or malign India with. They clearly believe they have something here to embarrass India with or malign India with.
Look, I think the dossier you're talking about and the reason it's being sent out all over the world is more of a cover. The indictment and the charge against Commander Kulbhushan Jadhav, retired Commander Kulbhushan Jadhav, was essentially, if you look at the timeline, nothing happened. They have had him for a number of months now, and suddenly, 10 days back, the military court convenes and charges him, and with espionage, and sentences him to death. The connection that has to be made, and that's what I said at the very the very first day when the news came out, was that this is a bargaining position by the Pakistan Army, because they want the lieutenant colonel that they alleged the Indian intelligence to have captured him in Nepal or whatever it is, and shanghaied him out of Nepal. They want him in exchange. The rest of it, I think, is just a game. As to whether or not Pakistan is isolated, well, I really don't think so. We might claim and hope and believe that the countries everywhere, and they're all siding with India and so on. They may be convinced that Pakistan is involved in Kashmir, but the fact is that Pakistan is too important a frontline state, as they see it, for it to be isolated and shunned.
Okay.
So it's not going to happen. They'll issue some words that are perhaps interpreted by Delhi to be supportive of the Indian position.
Clearly.
But I don't think it's going to amount to much more than that.
So on that note, you and I agree.
To keep saying that Pakistan is isolated and so on, I don't think
So
that's
Bharat,
true.
on that note, you and I agree. Of course, we might be in a minority
I
on this
suppose
panel.
that's what you're saying.
Yes.
And I would agree that there is.
Yes, on that point, you and I agree. We might be in a minority on this panel. But I want to go across to
Whether
our
a minority or a majority.
Yes, on the panel, I mean, on that point. Arslan Bhatti joining us from Pakistan right now. Mr. Bhatti, let me just ask you about what the Supreme Court Lawyers Association or Bar Association has said today. And one of the members, ex-head of that particular association, spoke to NewsX today. And he clearly indicated that there is enough within the Pakistani society, especially lawyers and the judiciary as well, who ask questions about the legitimacy of these military courts. Now, they've always said these military courts are extrajudicial. When members of your own society come out and say this, don't you think the entire trial or the lack of it of Mr. Jadhav, the sentencing to death of Mr. Jadhav comes under scrutiny there? Arslan?
Military courts are very much under the Constitution as law was passed by our National Assembly, then the military courts were formed, and they deal with these kind of special cases of spying, espionage, etc., etc. One thing. Second thing is what the Supreme Court lawyers, bar associations were saying that all were their own views. It has nothing to do with the military. Military courts is reality in India, in Pakistan. The trial was very much fair, given to Mr. Kulbhushan Jadhav. There is no maligning, no embarrassing, and nothing. And one thing, a person was saying that it may be exchange of Mr. Jadhav. There is no exchange. There will be no exchange. There would be no exchange. No, it has nothing to do with this case.
No, but when you say that they are constitutional, these Pakistani military courts, when your own lawyers come out and say that the parliament passed a law, an amendment in the Pakistani Senate because civilian courts or judiciary couldn't really try terror cases because the judges got no security. That's why you had to rely on Pakistani military courts. Doesn't that in itself make it slightly out of the ambit of the Constitution, and the Pakistani military courts getting way more power than any court in the world should?
No, you should understand that Pakistan was passing through a very special situation. We are under terrorist threat daily. Several threat letters had been issued daily by our law enforcement agencies in order to deal with such terrorists. Your next question, I already answered this, your next question in this. When the terrorists were there, they never, the person who were against the terrorists, who saw them, even I might not be able to give any confessional statement or any witness against a terrorist. This is the threat. Now, why the military courts were formed? They were formed in order to punish these terrorists who were against the law, against the Constitution, against the very existence of Pakistan. That's why military courts were formed. They were very much formed under the Constitution, under the law, because there is no harm in it. When a terrorist was freed by a court of law,
okay, I also want to come to, Aslan, I want to talk about Uzair Baloch in a bit and what Iran has been saying about Uzair Baloch and his arrest and his linking to Kulbhushan Jadhav. But first, I'll get a response from Mr. Mittal.
May I come in just for one?
Sudhanshu Mittal first, then Vivek Karju, and then we'll go on. Go ahead, Sudhanshu Mittal.
I just want to tell my friend from Pakistan that this is the most bizarre of all.
Can I make a point?
Charges which have been,
Go ahead, Sudhanshu.
The most bizarre of all charges. He is a terrorist without having done anything to terrorize people. Normally, if you say somebody is a terrorist, you will say, look, he was involved in this act of terrorism, or he was involved in that act of terrorism. Till today, what was his act of terrorism? One has never heard from any Pakistani authority, including all the spokespersons of the army of Pakistan. Secondly, I just want my friend Mr. Bhatti to tell us, was Mr. Sartaj Aziz wrong then or is he wrong now? When in January he had said there was not adequate evidence against Mr. Jadhav. At that time already the confessional statement, the so-called confessional statement, was already before the military court.
No, that's
so
clearly.
Even after the
gone back
confession,
on his earlier statement, and I would like Mr.
no,
Bhatti
that's
to
what
answer
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Now there, he's double-faced now.
Okay, Commodore GJ Singh, very quickly come in here, then we'll go to Arslan again. Go ahead, Commodore Singh.
I just want to first bring in the fact that the highest court in a country, Supreme Court's lawyers, have themselves asserted now that the validity of the army court, military court, which Pakistan had given this verdict, is invalid, is a questionable. So therefore, when the lawyers of a country itself contradict that, I think the efforts of Pakistan to malign India in the world, stand absolutely nullified. Second point is that the civil society of Pakistan, like the Malala, who is the Peace Prize, Nobel Peace Prize laureate, herself has said yesterday that it is the Pakistanis themselves who bring bad name to Pakistan. It is nobody else but the people from within Pakistan are causing damage to the country. So therefore, when you have the people in a country coming against the military itself, I think whatever they're trying to do to bring a bad name to India will not bear any fruit.
All right,
and at the same time, Pakistan you see the very act of Pakistan. The last point I want to make, the very fact that the Pakistan, you see the very fact that the very fact that Pakistan has violated, it has not given any evidence on what grounds Commander Jadhav is being given the death penalty. It constitutes a violation of all international
that much is very clear.
agreements.
Commander Singh, we've been talking about that for the past 2 days. Vivek Karju wants to come in very quickly. Vivek Karju, very quickly, Vivek Karju, before I go back to Arslan Bhatti. Go ahead, Vivek Karju.
What Arslan Bhatti said that Pakistan doesn't want any exchange. The Sartaj Aziz yesterday in a statement said that this is the time for active diplomacy to resolve tensions. The main cause of tension at the present is the Kulbhushan Jadhav matter. What does this mean? Active diplomacy. It means that is the Kulbhushan Jadhav matter. What does this mean? Active diplomacy. It means that please, if you have one of our people, please let's talk. And when governments talk in this matter, it is not legality, it is not the courts, it is not the civilian, it is not any other kind of matter, but it's a question of exchange.
Okay, clearly, Arslan Bhatti, you have 2 questions.
That is why this desperate hurry.
2 questions, Arslan Bhatti. One, of course, on the Sartaj Aziz statement about active diplomacy that Vivek Karju brought up yesterday, right now. Also, the earlier question by Mr. Mittal, that Mr. Sartaj Aziz very clearly had said that all the information on Kulbhushan Jadhav, the dossier, so-called dossier, were just statements. He immediately changed tack after, very recently, Pakistan picked up pace on the Jadhav issue, seeing an opportunity. How is that justified? Was Mr. Sartaj Aziz telling the truth yesterday, or was he telling the truth some months ago?
Both the statements of Mr. Sartaj Aziz based on true facts. One thing. Number 2, the person was asking me about active diplomacy. Active diplomacy has nothing to do with the exchange of these 2 men. Active diplomacy was the need of the conditions between the 2 countries, between the 2 nuclear neighbors. You can change borders, you can't change neighbors. Active diplomacy
This is strange, Mr. Bhatti. The whole statement is about this man, and you say active diplomacy has no connection with this case. Strange argument.
Let me answer.
Please read the
active
statement.
Diplomacy, active diplomacy means in order to settle all the issues between the 2 neighbors, including everything, every issue, including Kashmir, including border crisis, including border disputes, including the exchange of prisoners, including the exchange of other things. But the case of Mr. Yadav has nothing to do with this active diplomacy, what you said. Active diplomacy
This is passing strange, Mr. Bhatti. You sentence an innocent Indian to death and then you say, come and talk to us about all other issues. There must be, your diplomats must be living in cuckoo land if they think this.
We didn't hang that person now. He has the right to appeal, not once,
Who else?
twice.
Kulbhushan Jadhav is an Indian citizen, an innocent citizen who was abducted.
This is what you said, abducted. But then why he was confessed? Why he had given a confessional statement, my dear?
Of course, if you confess, you know, my dear Mr. Bhatti, please read your timeline in that he was picked up on the 3rd. The confessional statement is on the 25th. ISI had a go at him for over 3 weeks. They could have extracted any statement from him. After all, the ISI is well known in your country to extract statements. You are the kind of people, the military and the army, who hung Zulfikar Ali Bhutto on totally trumped up charges. You hung your own prime minister.
Okay,
You're talking
Sudhanshu
about
wants to come in.
confessional statement from Jadhav?
Sudhanshu
What are you
Mittal wants to
talking
come
about?
in.
Look within yourself.
I am coming.
Mr. Bhatti, your entire argument is, Mr. Bhatti, your entire argument is the confessional statement of Mr. Jadhav.
No, what has changed?
I will say, you give me the, can I finish? You give me the custody. I always say, if I have your custody, even for a day, I will prove it that you have confessed in front of everybody that you are in India to kill American president. I mean, having someone's custody and then getting a confessional statement, what's the big deal? I mean, as I said, if I have your custody, I can make you say whatever I want you to say. I can make you say the most absurd thing, that you are here in India to kill the American president. So when you rely on such statements, and mind it, after this statement, when Sartaj Aziz says there is not enough evidence, was he out of his mind? Did he not understand whether there was the validity of a confessional statement? Was he lying then, or is he lying now? You are cleverly evading my question. I am asking you, there are two contradictory statements by Sartaj Aziz.
Okay, let Jia Singh answer one. Jia Singh, very quickly, under 10 seconds, and I have to get an answer from Arslan Bhatti, then we have to wrap. Go ahead, Jia Singh.
I just want to ask Bhatti that in December Sartaj Aziz makes a statement that there's no evidence, it's only statements which contain the dossier. What has changed within these 4 months, 3 months, that in April they have got all the evidence now to put Jadhav to death? I mean, where has that evidence come from? In December there was no evidence. In 3 months period, they have now,
exactly,
made up all
given
kinds
nothing
of
that they wanted
evidence against him. I mean, this is very ridiculous.
Okay, Arslan Bhatti, I believe you have enough questions to answer. Go ahead and answer them. I'll end with Bharat Karnad if I can. But Arslan Bhatti, go ahead.
Number one, Mr. Sartaj Aziz, when he said in the upper house of our law, in the Senate, that there were not enough evidence against Mr. Jadhav, that was very much true. In December, there were no evidence. When he was interrogated by the military court, he connected something. He told the military courts about his contacts. Then those contacts were arrested. They were taken into custody and asked questions and interrogated.
Don't be ridiculous, Mr. Bhatti. Please, we all respect you. We don't expect you to be ridiculous.
His statement is in December 2016, early December 2016, and now you are lying. You are lying on television.
Okay, all right. Let me just take a step back now.
In March.
No, let's take a step back. I don't have much time here, but I want to go across to Bharat Karnad.
4 months.
No, give me a second. Arslan, please. Give me a second now, please. Now, Bharat Karnad, I have a simple question for you before we close, and we have enough time for the answer as well. The question is this. Despite what Pakistan is doing in terms of the dossier, in terms of so-called fresh evidence coming to light, sending it to the UN, sending it to every other nation in the world except for India, and India ratcheting up the pressure as well. Now remember, India has cancelled the Maritime Security Summit, or the talks that were supposed to happen. So India is piling up its own pressure as well. Where do you see this going? Will it actually culminate in quote-unquote active diplomacy, as Sartaj Aziz calls it? Is there a chance that there might be a swap at some level? because Pakistan alleges we have their man? Or do you believe it is in Pakistan's interest to go ahead with Mr. Jadhav's execution because it will help them prove a point and perhaps embarrass? Which way do you think it's going to go?
Well, the basic predicate here is that Mr. Commander Yadav is still alive. That's the basis for the External Affairs Minister, Sushma Swaraj, asking for evidence and proof of his being alive. If he's alive, then I don't think he's going to be executed. I think the swap will be the end state of all the hoo-ha on both sides.
All right.
And you'll have that exchange, and things may then sort of peter, sort of get back to the usual state of no peace, no war, and the usual tensions. But I think the point here is, will the government of India, the onus might be on government of India to see whether it's whether it wants to exchange the lieutenant colonel who supposedly had a hand in capturing Commander Yadav.
Yes.
Now we don't know what the story is. This is what you hear. So there are wheels within wheels, and so we'll see how it works out. But one thing is certain: I don't think if Commander Yadav is alive that he's going to be executed, and the swap will be made sometime whenever things work out.
All right. Bharat Karnad, let's just to hope that there is one of the scenarios that both governments are looking at. Thank you for joining us, Bharat Karnad, Vivek Karju, Sudhanshu Mittal, as well as Commodore Singh and Arslan Bhatti, who joined us from Pakistan. That's debate number 1.